السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So as mentioned that inshallah today I will put up a few notes, like you know that I'm open to suggestions. So one of the Hazarat suggested that it will be good if I can put notes up. So then I thought about it, made mashwara, and then in Darul Ulums, generally between first to final year, they don't use any external aids for teaching because the objective is to build the isti'adad of the students. They try not to use the whiteboard or not to. In fact, even the ustads would prohibit students from. Let me just see how to upload this thing. Okay, so a simple thing. Okay, so can you see it, what I just put up?
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay. Yes, and I will try it up, inshallah. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, basically, I only taught twice with points, and both were live sessions, so I didn't end up using the points. Once is we had a workshop on Salafis, what's the difference between an Athari and a Salafi and a Wahhabi and a Madkhali, and all of that, and how they differ with Hanafis and Asharis and Maturidis. So for that, there was PowerPoint. Someone made PowerPoint, but I never ended up using it, but it was a live session. That was the first time. And then the second time was we done a course on Ulum al-Ḥadīth, but also. So nevertheless, you'll see how well I can follow all of these, what's written here. Okay, so then if it works out, then inshallah we can always use this here. So from the previous lesson, you can see it's written here on the top that we are discussing al-Khabar al-Muhtaf bil-Qara'in, that if there are external factors or additional reasons to strengthen a hadith, to make the hadith such that it will give us ilm. And then we went through the first qarina, which was ma akhrajahu shaykhan, that if Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahullah, if they have to merely narrate a hadith, then will that be sufficient to raise the status of the narration to the point that we get firm conviction that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam indeed did utter those words. So this is how I like to translate this ilm al-nazari. Let's just say convince. It makes it easier to understand in English. That it convinces us that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually did utter those words, or maybe if it's explaining an action of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then to convince us that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did do that action. So then, from now to read this, yes. So almost all Hanafis say that by a narration simply coming in Bukhari and Muslim, we still cannot have conviction that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam uttered those words. So you know that famous statement of Imam al-Haramain. Many scholars quote it generally, even like when you're having a Bukhari khatam or something. But that if a person has to suspend the divorce of his wife, or if a person has to take an oath on everything in a Sahihain, that they are authentic. So one is that they are authentic, and one is that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam indeed did utter those words. So there's a difference between the two, as we'll explain later. So then, as we have explained, that there were very few Hanafis who said that you will get ilm. For example, Man Abdul Hayy Lakanawi rahimahullah, that his name is mentioned, that he was one scholar who said that you will get ilm. However, there are two places where he discussed it. The one is in Zafr al-Amani. Like I told you, in Zafr al-Amani, if you go through the text there, you will see that he is merely as mentioning and quoting. It's on page 127 and 128, and the PDF is on the group. You will see it's just merely a quoting that the view of Ibn Salah, rahimahullah, etc. So if he's quoting it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is his view. Maybe you can say that he didn't make ta'aqqub, but still, it's not 100%. And then the second is that in Al-Ajwibatul Fadila, So again, there on page 202, he is basically talking about the taqsim al-sab'i, which we will soon talk about. So he's not talking about ifadatul ilm. So there's a difference between the two. So like you can see from there that his statement is open to interpretation. Then you have Shah Waliullah. So Shah Waliullah, rahimahullah, in Hujjatullah al-Baligha, in volume 1 on page 232. So again, his statement, it's open to interpretation. His exact words are that أما الصحيحان فقد اتفق المحدثون على أن جميع ما فيهما من المتصل المرفوع صحيح بالقطع. So you can see he's saying صحيح بالقطع, that we can be absolutely convinced that they are sahih. So again, إنهما متواتران إلى مصنفيهما, but it does not necessarily, it depends like how you want to look at the statement. It does not necessarily mean that he is saying that you will get from ilm. Then when it comes to the other madhahib, then we have the names which Ibn Hajar rahmallah mentioned here, that ulama Humaydi rahmallah, Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi rahimahullah, Abu Ishaq al-Isfira'ini rahimahullah, they were all of the view, and they had the same view which Ibn Hajar rahmallah chose, that if a hadith comes in Bukhari and Muslim, then because of this external factor to the Khabar al-Wāḥid, that it's narrated by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, it will give you, it will fully convince you. So that's this group of scholars. And this here was also the view of Ibn Salah rahmallah. When you do ulum al-hadith, when you do Muqaddamah Ibn Salah, then you will see that Allama Ibn Salah rahmallah, he mentions that he first chose the other view and then he changed his view. So Allama Ibn Salah rahmallah, he was also of this وَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَمِيلُ إِلَى هَذَا وَأَحْسَبُهُ قَوِيًّا ثُمَّ بَانَ لِي أَنَّ الْمَذْهَبَ الَّذِي اخْتَرْنَاهُ أَوَّلًا هُوَ صَحِيح لأن ظن من هو معصوم من الخطأ لا يخطئ والأمة في إجماعها معصومة من الخطأ. So Ibn Salah rahmallah, he had the exact same view like what Ibn Hajar rahmallah mentioned. Yeah. However, then there were many other Shafi'is who took the same view, like the Hanafis, and they strongly objected on those that said that you can get firm ilm. For example, Imam Nawawi rahmallah, I quoted to you from Imam Nawawi rahmallah, what he mentioned in his tadrib when he was condensing ulum al-hadith of Ibn Salah, and likewise in his commentary of Muslim, they also. Like that, Izzuddin bin Abdul Salam, so he actually attributed to Mu'tazilites. He said that it's the Mu'tazilites who say this here. And thereafter he calls it وَهُوَ مَذْهَبٌ رَدِيءٌ. He said that this here is a extremely terrible madhab to have. Like that, Ibn Burhan, rahimahullah, and many others. So Ibn Rushayd al-Busti in Mil'ul al-Aiba, he too in volume 5 on page 329 and 330, he says, he writes quite a bit there, and he says, وَنَحْنُ نَجِدُ عُلَمَاءَ الشَّعْرِ يَعْرِضُونَ لأحاديث كتابي البخاري ومسلم ويرجحون بعضها على بعض باعتبار من سلم رجالها من التكلم فيه على من لم يسلم وبغير ذلك من وجوه الترجيحات النقلية. So he's saying that you find scholars giving preference to other narrations in other kitabs. ولو كان الجميع مقطوعا به ما بقي مسلك للترجيح. Everyone would become muqallids basically of Bukhari and Muslim. You couldn't prefer any other narration over the narration of Bukhari and Muslim. So you have all these kind of scholars from the Shafi'i madhab who chose the same view, like what the Hanafis are saying, that even though Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahumullah narrated the hadith, at the end of the day it's still a Khabar al-Wāḥid, and because it's still a Khabar al-Wāḥid, therefore we can only have Dannul Ghalib. So at most we can, our preference can be that yeah, it's greatly possible that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam did utter those words. It's very possible that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam did do this action, but we cannot hold and we cannot have a firm conviction. We cannot take an oath, and we cannot say that yeah, most definitely Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam did do this. So now Ibn Hajar rahmallah, he gave 3 reasons here. Is we read from the text last week. The first is that why are we giving preference to these narrations of Bukhari and Muslim? So the first is, he said, Jalalatu ma fi hadha sha'n, that their greatness in this field, that they were masters in this field. Then the second reason is he's saying وَتَقَدُّمُ مَا فِي تَمْيِيزِ الصَّحِيحِ عَلَى غَيْرِهِمَا, that they had the ability and they were in the forefront of being able to distinguish strong narrations from weak narrations. And then the third is that وَتَلَقِّي الْعُلَمَاءِ لِكِتَابَيْهِمَا بِالْقَبُولِ, the Ummah accepted their books. And then as he says here, that this وهذا التلقي وحده أقوى في إفادة العلم من مجرد كثرة الطرق القاصرة عن التواتر. That this talaqi, that the ulama and all the so many scholars of the ummah, irrespective from which madhab, after Imam Bukhari rahimahullah wrote his kitab, after Imam Muslim rahimahullah wrote his kitab, they began to accept their kitabs. So now to answer and to dissect these arguments and these reasons of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So we say that there were other great scholars as well who also wrote in this field, and they too were able to differentiate sahih from a weak. So from other scholars you have the teachers of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, for example Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. So no one will doubt that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah was much greater than Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. Likewise Ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah. So they also fulfilled this first condition of jalalatu al-jalala fi hadha shan. Likewise they fulfilled the second condition of at-taqaddum fi tamyiz sahih ala ghayri, to such an extent that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah himself would go and ask Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And then the third condition, obviously, Musnad Ahmad, you know, till today, so many scholars accept the kitab and so many scholars praise the kitab. So there's also and other teachers of Imam Bukhari, and likewise others who Imam Bukhari rahimahullah himself regarded as senior. So that is, you have those kind of scholars. Then you have not only the teachers of Imam Bukhari, even the teachers of the teachers of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. So they indeed were much greater than Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. For example, Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Imam Malik rahimahullah is the teacher of the teachers of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. Yeah, okay. So now you're going to the second page. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he also had this additional benefit that he was firstly from Khairul Qurun, you know, based on how Sheikh Muhammad Awama explained it, and then it's quoted in Al-Madkhal, that it's up to the year 220. So he falls under that because Imam Bukhari rahimahullah passed away in 256. So Imam Malik had firstly that additional benefit, and secondly, that scholars of Khairul Qurun, so scholars who were in the century and scholars who are much greater than the scholars who praise Sahih al-Bukhari, they praised Muwatta Imam Malik. For example, we will do later on that Imam Shafi'i rahmallah praised the Muwatta. So yes, you might have great scholars praising Sahih al-Bukhari, but you have even greater scholars praising Muwatta Imam Malik. So then, and then here you can see that we can add the books of Imam Muhammad rahimahullah as well. That Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, his books was also mutalaqqa bil qabul. So we say that we see on this next page, a year afterwards, when Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he himself is admitting, and he's saying that إِلَّا أَنَّ هَذَا يَخْتَصُ بِمَا لَمْ يَنْتَقِدُ أَحَدٌ مِنَ الْحُفَاظِ مِمَّا فِي الْكِتَابَيْنِ. So he himself is admitting that indeed those narrations which scholars have criticized. And when you look in the Nukat of Alama Iraqi rahimahullah, then he says that it's actually a great amount, that it's a lot. He's saying that it's not just a small amount, it's a great amount of ahadith which scholars have criticized. And then in his Nukat, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah even accepted that it's a large amount of ahadith. So since they are agreeing that there are weak narrations in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, yes, according to Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, according to their personal opinion, those narrations were authentic. But other scholars have criticized it. So now, when you are giving this leeway to Imam Bukhari to say that, okay, we will overlook those weak narrations, then the same leeway we can apply to these scholars whose names I just took, to Musnad Ahmad. We can even say that the weak narrations which are there, likewise to Muwatta Imam Malik, and in fact, it's quite it is also less like how it is. And then we can even then apply this principle to Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, and we can say that we will exclude the weak narrations, and then we say whichever authentic narrations there are in these kitabs, then you will also have to be fair to them, like giving the same benefit. So just as we exclude these narrations from Sahih al-Bukhari, we also exclude from those kitabs. So then that's the first way of responding. And then this here is with regards to those who were more senior to Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, scholars who were greater than him. Then we wrote that there were many scholars who might not have been as great as Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, but they were still experts in the field. For example, here you can see we got here Imam Nasa'i, Abu Dawud, Imam Tirmidhi, and even from the next century, Imam Bayhaqi and Imam Tabarani rahimahullah. So you can quite a bit of scholars. They were great, but they were not great. So they fulfill as Jalala fi hadha shan. Likewise, they were also able, if you had to go to Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah and ask him, is this hadith sahih or da'if, he would have been able to tell you. Likewise, if you had to even go to Imam Bayhaqi rahimahullah, he was an expert, he would have been able to tell you. So he fulfilled the second. And then there's also talaqqi of their kitabs, that there are so many narrations. In fact, when Shafis are giving dalil, then there is so many times they would give to give the dalil from the books of Imam Bayhaqi rahimahullah. So then our question is that what is the criteria and the benchmark for greatness? Because on what basis? Okay, yes, we do agree that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was great, but these scholars were also great. So why can't we consider the greatness of these scholars and only consider the greatness of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah? Likewise, Imam Bukhari had the ability of distinguishing sahih narrations from weak narrations. So what about these scholars? So if you have to apply this principle now, there's three things which Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned here, that Jalala fi hadha shan and taqaddum fi tamyiz as-sahih ala ghayri, and likewise talaqqi al-ulama. Then you're going to now inevitably accept so many other books, and by accepting all those other books, then you will ultimately have the same conclusion and the same view like Ibn Hazm, that al-ahad tufidul ilm. Because once you accept, you must know that all the Khabar al-Wāḥid ahadith which reached us today, it came down through kitabs which were mutalaqqa bil-qabul. Whichever hadith we have came down through a kitab, and all those kitabs are mutalaqqa bil-qabul. So then we will say that now all these narrations, since it comes from kitabs which are mutalaqqa bil-qabul, it will give you the faidah of ilm. So the conclusion will be that all these akhbar al-ahad, it gives the faidah of ilm. The only difference, Ibn Hazm from the very beginning is saying Khabar al-ahad will give you the faidah of ilm, and Ibn Hajar is taking the long way, and he's saying that first it gives you dhan, but then if it's muhtaf bil qara'in, then it will give you the faidah of ilm. And how is muhtaf bil qara'in? Is that if it comes in one of these famous books, and if it comes in one of these famous books, then it will give you the faidah of ilm. When you look at all the Khabar ahadith which we have in today's times, then all of them come from these books. So then the conclusion is that all of them will have to give you the faidah of ilm. So in short here, there are many narrations in other books like Sunan Abi Dawud, which everybody has accepted as sahih. Now here you can see we have a title here, Talaqqi bil Qabul. That when we're talking of Talaqqi bil Qabul, the third conditions. So there's many scholars that did not take note. You see this here, it's actually, I don't have a laptop, so someone else typed it out, and that is why it's my first time I'm reading it. So I wrote it on a paper, and then I took a picture of the paper, and then they typed it out. So many, and then also to convert it into the PDF. So many scholars did not take note that the Hanafis insist that only the talaqqi of Khairul Qurun is valid. That as you know that when you were doing from Kashful Asrar, when you were doing that assignment, then you remember there that it's clearly written وَالْإِعْتِبَارُ لِلْإِشْتِهَارِ في القرن الثاني والثالث. Some of you had it in your assignments. ولا عبرة للاشتهار في القرون التي بعد القرون الثلاثة فإن عامة أخبار الآحاد اشتهرت في هذه القرون ولا تسمى مشهورة. So you can see that for us we are very strict, that it has to be talaqqi wal qabul has to be within the khairul qurun. That means, and it's clear, he's clearly mentioning وَلَا عِبْرَةَ لِلْإِشْتِهَارِ فِي الْقُرُونِ الَّتِي بَعْدَ الْقُرُونِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. He's clearly mentioning that we don't take into consideration the ishtihar which is after the qurun al-thalatha. So the talaqi bil qabul, which happened after the year 220 hijrah, is absolutely no merit, and it gives absolutely no benefit. So amongst those who did not take note of this was Allama Bulqini rahimahullah and Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. So Allama Bulqini rahimahullah, and because of not taking a note of this year, therefore they attributed the wrong view to the Hanafis. So Allama Bulqini rahimahullah and Ibn Taymiyyah, you'll see that they are saying that there are so many Hanafis as well. Like, for example, if you have to look in Majmu' al-Fatawa of Ibn Taymiyyah in volume 13 on page 351 and 352 of the Dar al-Wafa print. So he there mentions that وهو الذي الخبر إذا تلقته الأمة بالقبول تصديقا له وعملا بموجبه أفاد العلم عند جماهير العلماء من السلف والخلف وهو الذي ذكره جمهور المصنفين في أصول الفقه. And after he mentions كشمس الأئمة السرخسي وغيره من الحنفية. Likewise, Allama Bulqini rahimahullah in his Mahasin al-Istilah is very specifically when talking about the Sahihain. Then he says هذا ممنوع فقد نقل بعض الحفاظ المتأخرين عن جمع من الشافعية والحنفية. You see, والمالكية والحنابلة أنهم يقطعون بصحة الحديث الذي تلقته الأمة بالقبول. So now when taking this here, when they are mentioning it, that the تلقي بالقبول, so I told you that some scholars now must apply this principle. For example, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah in his Nukat on page 286, he quotes these kind of statements to prove that because talaqi bil qabul, and you can see the scholars they're mentioning from Hanafis also, so therefore there is talaqi bil qabul for ahadith of sahihain, which would mean that we will get the faida of ilm because on all the narrations of the ahadith of sahihain. But they didn't realize that the Hanafis are very strict with regard to the talaqi in Khairul Qurun and not the talaqi after Khairul Qurun. So the talaqi of Sahih al-Bukhari and all other books of Hadith, so many books of Hadith which were written after the beginning of the 3rd century, now it's too late. The talaqi is too late because the talaqi had to happen before the year 220, then only we would say it gives the faida of ilm. But yes, there is talaqi for Sahih al-Bukhari and there is talaqi for Sahih Muslim, but it's too late. And the madhabs were already formed by then, so therefore we say it is too late. So I got here Allama Kawthari's statement. And in fact, besides Allama Kawthari, because he's commenting on the statement of Ibn Amir al-Hajj. So in التقرير والتحذير ثم مما ينبغي التنبيه له على أن أصحيتهما على ما سواهما تنزلا إنما تكون بالنظر إلى من بعدهما للمجتهدين المتقدمين عليهما فإن هذا مع ظهوره قد يخفى على بعضهم أو يغالط به والله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم. That's what Ibn Amir al-Hajj mentioned. So then commenting on it, so this here is in the Shurut al-A'imma al-Khamsa of Allama Hazmi, and it's printed with the Thalatha Rasail fi ilm Mustalah al-Hadith. So on page 174, then Allama Kawthari rahmallah then says يريد أن الشيخين وأصحاب السنن جماعة متعاصرون من الحفاظ أتوا بعد تدوين الفقه الإسلامي واعتنوا بقسم من الحديث وكان الأئمة المجتهدون قبلهم أوفر مادة وأكثر حديثا بين أيديهم المرفوع والموقوف والمرسل وفتاوى الصحابة والتابعين ونظر المجتهد ليس بقاصر على قسم من الحديث. And then he says ودونك الجوامع والمصنفات في كل باب منها تذكر هذه الأنواع التي لا يستغنى عنها المجتهد. So from here you can see that although there was talaqi of on Sahihain, the talaqi doesn't benefit us at all. So then on the next page here, Ibn Hajar rahmallah talks about maziyah. You see, he's saying that فَلَمْ يَبْقَ لِلصَّحِيحَيْن فِي هَذَا مَزِيَّةٌ. So is there any maziyah on the ahadith of Sahihain? That the fact that there is talaqi bil qabul, are we saying that this has like absolutely no benefit, or will it give some kind of benefit? So at most, because of the talaqi, we can say that they are sahih, Or in a worst case scenario, we can say that the narrations of Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim are Hasan. So that is what we can say. We can say that it's Sahih or Hasan. We're not saying that you can firmly believe that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam uttered those words. Because even if a hadith is Sahih, it is again based on Dhannul Ghalib, because everyone can make a mistake. And this is the whole issue which comes about why we are not attributing it to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From the strongest of the strongest narrators, everyone made mistakes across the board. In fact, Allama Jassas al-Razi in his Al-Fusul, he talks a lot about mistakes, and he even proves how, because at the end of the day, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they also at times made an error, a slip up, so to say. Or whatever other word, you guys know English better than me, whichever other appropriate word to use. Obviously for Sahaba you use words of respect. But they were human beings, so every person made an error. So by it being merely Sahih, it does not mean that you have to believe that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it, and also it does not mean that you have to practice upon it. Because it does not mean that if a hadith is sahih, then you have to practice, because you will get confused that you will find two hadiths which are both sahih, but they apparently contradict each other. And therefore, if you have to look, Sheikh Muhammad Awama, I'm sure most of you may have read it already, but if you didn't, then you should read Athrul Hadith Sharif from page 80 to page 119. He talks about this whole thing, Sihhatul Hadith, Kafiyatul lil Amal, that how you will have to inevitably have to leave out some narrations. So just being sahih doesn't mean, so because now in today's times you have this fitna, that where people believe that you pick up Sahih al-Bukhari and you practice upon it. So like one scholar from America, he was saying that after Asr, he converted, he was there and he assisted one person to reverting to Islam. And the next week he sees that person walking around with an English commentary of Sahih al-Bukhari. He asked him, what are you doing with this commentary? He said, no, as he went to a particular organization there, and they gave him this, and they told him he must practice upon it. So it does not mean that because everything in Bukhari and Muslim is Sahih, that you have to practice upon it. Yes, we are saying that it is Sahih, but, and I have told you about this before, that when Allama Khalid Mahmoud rahmallah, when he came to Darul Ulum Azadwal, then he gave a nice answer. He says that at times when you go to the haram, and now maybe say janazah, you perform your 2 salams, a day when you make 1 salam, or maybe when you're doing tashahud, you put your finger down, and they leave their finger, then continuously make ishara. Then afterwards they have this habit of now asking you that what's your dalil. So he says that the best is, and they will go to your hadith from Bukhari. So he's saying that the best is, now obviously you're there in the masjid of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in the haram, you don't want to debate and you don't want to argue. Obviously you're not going to convert that person or change the mindset of that person on that small meeting. He's going to go to your hadith of Bukhari. So Allama Khalid Mahmoud rahmallah said, they just ask him, is this the only sahih hadith on this topic? He immediately will be baffled, because if he has to say no, there are other sahih hadith. You are practicing on these sahih ahadith, we are preferring other sahih ahadith. And if he has to say that there are no other sahih ahadith, then obviously it shows that how minimal knowledge he has. So just by a hadith being sahih does not mean that you have to practice upon it. You see now in this notes, now let me read this notes here. I have to get used to now reading these notes. So then here Sheikh Awama in his ta'liqat of Tadrib, he mentions this here, that although we are preferring a hadith from another kitab, but ta'wil al-hadith la ya'ni raddahu wa adamu tashihihi. That by a hadith just being sahih, and you choosing another hadith over it, it does not now mean that this narration is weak, because it could be mansukh, for example. Then we got written here that ultimately Ibn Hajar rahmallah realized that the Shafi'i madhab itself also contradicts this principle of saying that the ahadith of Bukhari gives you the faida of ilm, and therefore in his nukat then he gave a long explanation to say that it's actually not the same as tawatur, and he tried to now explain that وبعد تقرير هذا فقول ابن الصلاح والعلم اليقيني النظري حاصل به لو اقتصر على قوله العلم النظري لكان أليق بهذا المقام، أما اليقيني فمعناه القطعي، فلذلك أنكر عليه من أنكر، لأن المقطوع به لا يمكن الترجيح بين آحاده، وإنما يقع الترجيح في مفهوماته، ونحن نجد علماء هذا الشأن قديما وحديثا يرجحون بعض أحاديث الكتابين على بعض بوجوه من الترجيحات النقلية، فلو كان الجميع مقطوعا به ما بقي للترجيح مسلك. He mentions this here on page 219 of volume 1 of his nukat on Muqaddama Ibn Salah. So then just so that you can get an idea of how many narrations of Sahih in Shafis do not practice upon, you can refer to this kitab here of Ibn Sibt al-Jawzi, al-Intisar wa tarjih lil madhhab al-Sahih. So alhamdulillah, we managed to have this lesson with these notes. So I would like your feedback also. That firstly, do these notes create any difference? Is it worth it actually to put this kind of notes? Or is it better just to teach like how we were teaching? You can let me know. And also if you want it more fancy, you see it's actually one, I told you there's one student who always likes to help, like, making research and all that. So I told her to type this out. And then I can tell her to make it fancy for you all if you guys like it more fancy. You write that, it's good with the notes. So inshallah then, yeah, and also I just have to get used to it like this year now, teaching what notes and keeping the notes in front. Because you must know that I'm teaching with a cell phone. So yeah, I'm holding the cell phone in front of me like this and reading from the cell phone. Okay, inshallah. So we'll see how it goes. And then yes, you can screenshot, or maybe I can even just email you, or put. What I'll do is I'll put the notes on the group afterwards, inshallah, after the lesson. So until Saturday, inshallah, jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.